Greetings, Invader scum. This is Pincognito, aka Pinko, back with another edition of A Half Hour So in the Life of a Finger. So we're making our return to the Corvian Wanderer, who we last saw in the second episode. And you'll see a bit more of kind of the offhand tools this particular character has. The Storyteller Staff and the Crow Quills. Now the Storyteller Staff I like quite a bit. Obviously fits this character well. And if you can proc the poison, which does proc quite quickly, it does good damage, more than regular poison. I think less than toxic, but it still does good damage. And I don't quite use the Crow Quill's main hand or as a main weapon with this character yet, but you will see it offhand here against solo hosts with the Scythe, which creates very nice mix-ups. And a quick shout out to a bunch of people that have been hyping up my channel a bit: Saint Riot, Schwa Akari, Dom Peridone on Reddit, Raven of Ash, I am Amish. I really appreciate all the love. I appreciate all the subscribers who watch these videos. It's really quite touching. So thanks everybody, and let's get to it, shall we? Alright, so this first invasion was a lot of fun, and I think it's the best example in this series of invasions of kind of how the Storyteller Staff can be used to pretty good effectiveness. It has a very small AoE, so you do have to really use it in levels that have tight corridors, nice choke points, and of course Irithyll Dungeon is just chock full of areas like that, so there's a lot of good opportunities to use it. So we can see right away we've got one Phantom and a Blue on the way, so we're going to be in a 1v3 very soon. There I overqueue my third R1, so I don't have a chance to get the riposte on the Sunbro, but still pretty decent trades for me in the first encounter. So then there we use the Storyteller Staff, and you can see in the background it does proc on the Sunbro, so it doesn't take long. Now the Sunbro had plenty of room to get out of that, so I suspect I just caught him off guard, and like most people, he's not used to seeing the Storyteller Staff, which is part of what happened there. So we got three people chasing us down, so this is turn and burn territory here. So you can see me scoping out kind of safe opportunities to turn around and get a couple hits in. Now here, it's a nice turn and burn, but I overcommit and I throw in the third R1, and that was a terrible idea. Frankly, pretty lucky to get out of there alive after overcommitting like that. But I managed to escape and barely survive the fall. So I've got time to reset, to heal up, and get ready for the next exchange, the next encounter. So this bridge, much like the hallways, is kind of a good opportunity to use the poison, because unless they're wearing the Silver Cat ring, which frequently hosts and their supporting phantoms are not, particularly at soul level 60 like we are here, you just don't see it that often. So that if I use the poison here, they don't have much option except to fall back or try to make their way through. So it allows me to apply a little pressure here. Now, if you notice, the Sunbro is still taking a ton of damage. It's about 10 hit points a second, which does take time to accumulate, but it does add up. And here I'm able to kind of trap them a little bit, just momentarily around that corner, and it's enough time to proc the poison on both the host and the blue. And while that damage does take a while to accumulate, it still puts pressure on them. Some extra psychological pressure, which absolutely helps out an invader. So I opened the gate early because I wanted to make sure I could get out of this room quickly, because it's a very small space to be fighting three people. You do get iframes when you open the gate, but I wanted to make sure I could get out in a hurry, like so. Now, I appreciate the courage that the Blue and the Sunbro show here, but it was really, really foolish to follow me into this room with his, 10 jailers? This is a terrible situation for them. I'm a little early on that last roll catch against the Sunbro, so he's able to get away. Here, the Blue and I both trade parry whiffs, but I'm able to respond more quickly, deal out some damage. And here you can tell the Blue's trying to parry again, but he holds it way too long. And then the poison takes them out before they can roll away and heal. And it's pretty simple at this point. I'm able to catch the host off guard while he's fighting a jailer. And then we come and finish off the Sunbro for good measure. So that was fun. Storyteller staff action. Running through the whole level more or less. That's good stuff. So here we start in probably my least favorite spawn point near the dungeon, which is at the bottom of the hallway right outside the entrance. The problem with this at times is that it's a dead end right where you're spawning. So if the party's already down there, which does happen, you're in a bad spot. You have to kind of fight your way through the party to get back out. But this time the host didn't make it down there yet. The host has retreated to this main entryway. Now you do have to be careful when you come in here because a lot of the time there's just phantoms hiding in adjoining cells. But this host was indeed solo for a little while. So buckler's out, and we all know what that means. You gotta watch out for those parries. That is not a shield that hides intentions, that's for sure. So I'm just trying to throw out some off-speed attacks to make this a host a little less certain in terms of their parry timings. And you can just see them, they're throwing out a lot of parries when I am nowhere near them. Now that's partly just because they're a little parry happy, but I think it's also because the timing of my attacks is a little weird, right? That R2 of the scythe has got the huge looping motion. And the attacks on the Croquill are very, very fast. So blue arrives, so it's time to leave this little space. So I get iframes as I open this gate, which means I can let the maggot beast free. I do not have iframes as I run away, so the blue tags me. We'll turn and burn against the host, get them to back off a little bit. He's so excited he parries twice. Now the blue makes a mistake here. Blue leaves the host and tries to take me on directly. This is usually a poor choice for blues, and it does not go well for this particular blue. Now you'll see me use quite a few times here an R1 weapon art and I'll alternate them. It's very hard to parry. I think Judas has said he doesn't think the weapon art is parryable. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's at least incredibly difficult to parry. You see the host gets a pretty good read on it. That wasn't bad. That wasn't too far off, and it didn't work at all. So this particular invasion, I think, is a decent example of kind of one thing an invader has to weigh a lot of the time, which is kind of balancing their aggression with appropriate caution against groups, because you do need to kind of seize your opportunity against groups, because you're not necessarily going to have a lot of opportunities against three opponents, because they can easily swarm you, and so you kind of have to seize the moment when it's presented. So I was, particularly with that Ultra Hammer, I was concerned about taking on this group in these narrow hallways, and so I wanted to try to do a lot of damage while I had the jailers here. So I'm trying to get in as many hits as I can while they have to deal with these jailers. But you will see quite shortly I get too aggressive. So here I walk in, take some hits. I do some damage, but then I go for a third R1, and that third R1 is my death sentence. Just too much aggression against a group this large. It would have been better if I had just retreated further into level to try to re-engage, with some more mobs at hand. But GG, guys. So in this one we can see there's a phantom over by the bonfire, but they never participate, so I'm not sure if they're just AFK or if that was just like a really very visible one of the ghost phantoms. I don't know, but I'm able to take care of the wizard really quickly. That's a good thing. Spells in this kind of narrow part of this level are a real problem. And I've got the host pinned, and so I'm able to use the storyteller staff and proc some poison. So here you can see it's doing 13 hit points of damage per second. So it's a hit point based damage that the poison does. Much like some of the spells like Pestilent Mercury. Now you see this host not moving at all. I just caught him. He must have been looking for some moss to cure the bleed. But no time. GG. Alright, so another spawning at the beginning of the level. Sir Curious? Sir Curious is hanging out by the bonfire, so we give Sir Curious a little surprise. A little storyteller staff poison. Sir Curious is curiously not so interested in our poison gas cloud, or our throwing knife, or our second throwing knife. So, of course, we have found ourselves an AFK host. I have an uncanny ability to find AFK hosts while recording these these sessions. I find more in these sessions than I do any other time I invade. So I usually leave a pile of trash, but this host is already a dead man, so we'll just we'll just hang out. So we're proccing about 11 hit points a second. Pretty decent. Doesn't take long. Poor Sir Curious. If only he knew that he could exit to the title menu. Alright, so our next opponent is the Nameless champion. Very nice, very edgy name. I do like my edgy names, and this one's pretty good. And unlike names like Guts or Artorias, you don't look foolish if you end up playing with the Dark Sword and Shield of Want halfway through the game. So Nameless champion wisely leaves the room down here to engage in more neutral territory. So we've got the old wolf curved sword, I'm able to space that weapon art, get a little damage in, and we've got some we've got a little salt to start right off. I really don't know what the host didn't like about that particular exchange. Seemed pretty ordinary to me, but already we've got some dissatisfaction from this particular host. Now this matchup was causing me some difficulties because in the weapon matchup, because the old wolf curved sword can outpoise anything I've got, and the Goddard's has got great range, not as much as the scythe, but it's also much faster, better damage per second I suspect than the scythe. He doesn't really make use of the rolling L1s, which is one of the strongest points of the weapon actually, but it's still a very dangerous weapon, and I was very concerned about how to get in on it safely during this fight. The only real kind of weapon matchup advantage I have is actually the Corvian Great Knife against this curved sword, because just like so, if I can get in ahead of the hyper armor frames, I can do a lot of damage. And the reason I was able to connect so many times there is because instead of rolling out, the host kept trying to counterattack, but the Corvian Great Knife is too fast, or any dagger would have been too fast, and so you can interrupt the hyper armor frames over and over again until they roll out. So here I'm actually having some decent success with the Great Knife against the Goddards. More than I thought I would have, actually. But kind of just on the issue of the constant emoting we see from the host here. It's not something I typically do in invasions. I don't think you'll see me respond with any emotes during the fight here. I'd much rather worry about my spacing and how to handle weapon matchups, how to get in safely to deal damage, how to get out safely, things like that. I really can't be bothered to be hitting the touchpad and figure out the saltiest emote to respond with. And you'll see in this fight, I mean, this host, it's not in this situation, but there's a lot of times where he chooses to do a little sarcastic applause and eats a little damage as a result. So You know, it did have a psychological effect on me, I'd say, all the applause, but not like, not getting tilted. I guess I talked about a little bit about this in it's the third episode with Woebegone Naj, my skill build, or not skill build, my luck build. When people kind of behave this way, it just turns on my inner tryhard, frankly. I'm much more committed to winning when people are kind of acting this way. And that's so I really, really wanted to win this fight. Certainly after like the second or third round of sarcastic applause. So you can see I'm able to kind of dodge the guarded a bit and get in some attacks as the host is trying to roll away. So the Corbin Great Knife was working quite a bit better against the guarders than I had anticipated. It may have just been the way that this particular host was using it though. There I went for kind of a cheeky Barker bomb bait. I think this host was good enough to not really fall for that, frankly. But I was kind of interested in a cheeky victory. Terrible rollout against R2 there by me, but I'm able to deal some quick damage, get off the Hail Mary firebomb, and he just mistimes his roll. And he has earned a little edge as a farewell. GG, Nameless champion. So our next opponent, Sir, not Edgy, which is my preference, but I still like that name. It's silly. So this was kind of an interesting fight. So a 2v1 with a little bit of lag that kind of complicated some of our encounters. But there was actually some interesting tactics that showed up during this invasion on their part that I hadn't really seen before, on this level at least. So it made it kind of interesting to me. So the Great Axe it's got some serious limitations, but you also don't want to get caught, like I just did. And it has some pretty good roll catching. It's got very deceptive range when someone is trying to roll catch you with it. And that player, the host, was a little laggy during these fights, and lag plus an ultra great weapon or a great weapon is not so much fun. So here I'm trying to proc the poison, but they are wisely leaving the fairly small AoE that the poison leaves behind. So I guess this is a pretty good example of the kind of the limitations of the storyteller staff. It's got such a small AoE that you have to kind of trap people into it to have a decent chance of getting it to proc. But it procs quickly. So our man here has made his way over from Witcher 3. I don't play Witcher 3, so I don't know if that's a good cosplay. Armor looks a little suspicious to me, but I'll leave it to to those of you who actually know that game to let me know whether that cosplay is any good at all. He's carrying 2 swords, I think, which seems like it's a decent cosplay. But yeah, the laggy Great Axe is causing me the most concern in this fight so far. You see Gerald is kind of hanging back, and the reason for that will become more clear, which is that he's out of Estus. Because I don't... Oof, that was just brutal. I got ultra stunned. Because I think I may have tried to attack after the second R1 in the hopes I could interrupt the hyper armor, but I don't quite remember, but it didn't work, whatever I was doing. So you'll see the Phantom has vanished as I get this sick backstab on the host. My backstab game is improving. Thank you, Project Goof. You're responsible for about 90% of my improvement so far. So I almost end the invasion in rather inglorious fashion just there. I'm doing a terrible job. See, that roll catch is pretty good. It's got some very deceptive phantom range on it. Some pretty good firebomb throws, if I do say so myself. Every one of them hit. Except that one. If that one had hit, I would have finished off Gerald entirely. But now, but see, this is, so we're getting to the part that I kind of found interesting in terms of their tactics. So Gerald is totally out of essence at this point, and he's got virtually no hit points. But he does something I have not seen anyone do in this area, and I've had a decent number of fights along this little bridge pathway area. He's set up there on the little corner with the great bow to try to kind of take pot shots at me as I engage with the host. It's kind of clever, right? So all those sweet firebomb free aim throws from before, all those skills seem to have abandoned me as I just brick firebomb after firebomb, trying to tag him up on that corner. Hosts mismanages their stamina really badly here, opens himself up for riposte. But there was the Phantom had that nice shot to kind of keep me from pursuing the host too much. And I continued to brick firebombs. It's not bad, right? I mean, he's on death's door, but he's still making himself useful to this host as best he can. I really liked the way this Phantom was playing. So pretty laggy host, which is, as I said before, a real cause of concern with that great axe. It's a lot easier to get stuck in a stun lock if you can't really space as well as you want to. So I'm not paying attention to my own FP here, and I tried to use the weapon art. I was trying to distract the host enough to go up and take out the Phantom, but the host does me a favor. Gets too close to the Phantom, so I don't have to free aim anymore. So I'm able to take out the Phantom. But GG Gerald, I really liked that great bow play. That was cool. Now he swung 3 times, many times during this fight, so it was just straight up foolish for me to try to get to attack him after the second. So the fact that the host is sprinting means that he's, if not out of, which is not low on Estus. Guessing he's trying to make his way back closer to the bonfire because he's concerned about not coming out the victor here. Now, unfortunately, the lag really gets bad. It's just kind of weird. Usually, the lag spikes tend to be when the Phantom is entering or leaving the world, but things got a little hairy here as the fight ended. Which is unfortunate because they had fought hard, they had stood their ground, and I'd really enjoyed this invasion. Almost ends for me right there. that kind of rapidly approaching laggy great axe is pretty terrifying. But he's so low on health, I take out the Corbin Great Knife because I just need to get like a couple hits in and he's done. It'd be much easier to do that with a Great Knife than it would be with a scythe. Whew, not pretty. But GG host. Good fight. Alright, so we again are, I think, entering a 2v1 with our host Sada. This one won't quite take us as far into the level. I think I was pausing here, frankly, to respond to a text message, so in real life interruption in my invasion. But we're following our breadcrumbs, such as they are, back to the entryway. Here we have a Phantom all by the lonesome, which of course is impossible unless the host is wearing the entryway red. But there's the host. Great axe again. You don't see it too often, and here we got it twice in a row. And the Phantom has got gales. So we need to be a little careful. Of course, he's password summoned. He's got gales after all. I was trying to kind of proc poison around the corner. I still haven't Phantom undeterred from his salty, edgy welcome gesture. You got to appreciate the commitment to the cause there. So I'm hoping that they're waiting around the corner for a sneak attack. So I was hoping to proc poison on them, but no dice. So I'm not willing to go in there in a 2v1, particularly when there's a great axe and Gale's involved. If I walk on there, I'm just going to get stun locked to death in all likelihood. So I hang out here. I need to be patient. So the great axe, much like some other weapons like Yuan, it's got that shockwave effect. So even if you've got it spaced pretty nicely in terms of the damaging part of the hitbox, it's pretty easy to get stuck in that shockwave. So I notice here that the Phantom is very, very interested in that running attack, which is parryable. All the great sword attacks are parryable, but that one's fairly easy to do, particularly if someone's spamming it like that. So here I'm just being patient again with the running attack. So now I'm ready. I break out the parry shield. Break out the Hornet Ring. I'm ready for a running attack. But the host the host falls right off, which changes kind of the dynamics of this particular invasion. So I go into safety. No, I don't. Because of DS3 physics, the Phantom can plunge attack me through the ceiling, so I take some pretty good damage upon falling. And I work my way because I don't want to get stuck at the dead end. That was a pointless use of the storyteller staff there, which I figure out quickly and I sprint down. But even here, I mean, I've got them trapped at the end of the level, but the AoE on that poison cloud is very small, so it doesn't get deep enough into the hallway to poison them. I'm still learning how to use that weapon. If I had just gone like a couple feet closer, I may have been able to proc poison on both of them. So I'm kind of content to do some chip damage with my fire bombs, get in some attacks while they're dealing with the mobs. Just keeping myself safe, not running away, but just attacking safely. Now the host, I notice immediately, is blocking with a great axe, which does not have a lot of stability. It's doing it again. It's a dangerous maneuver. And this time it's a fatal one. So GG Sada. And his friend is a little salty. That's okay though. GG guys. So this invasion was another 1v3. It went better than the earlier 1v3 where I got over aggressive very early on and paid the iron price. Now I made some tactical decisions that hurt me here. One I think was a glorious tactical decision and I don't regret it. The other was more an issue of ring choice, which could have made a really big difference, I think, in the way this invasion turned out. So I'll point those out when we get to them. So here we have the Phantom kind of cheekily waving at me, so I give him a little R1 greeting. As we wait for them to come and greet us. Say hello. So we got some pretty spammy dudes here. Now, I should have, early on in this invasion, switched to my Hornet Ring. 1v3 is a lot to handle, and I have no problems putting on a Hornet Ring when I'm outnumbered this badly. Right here would have been the end of that Phantom, and it would have changed kind of the whole way this invasion played out, I think. So that was a pretty serious tactical mistake on my part. I mean, I had the Silver Cat ring on, so I avoided taking damage right there, but really, in comparison, the Hornet Ring would have been far more useful. I think I did that next swipe because I was kind of upset with myself for not equipping the Hornet Ring. So here I was trying to figure out what was going on. So they had the shortcut door locked, but this one is unlocked, which you don't see that too often. So I give chase. They're still hanging out. Getting some good trades. So I was feeling pretty good in this invasion. I felt like I was the better player for sure. And I felt like I had a chance to win this 1v3, provided I played it well. So I had glorious intentions. Plunge attack on all three. Roll off to the little alcove where you pick up the miracle, and then continue with my invasion. But I never made it to the goddamn alcove. And I die terribly. Oh well, that's just the way it goes sometimes. Alright, so our final invasion from this session. The host is Ninja. Solo host. You know, as I've said before, not what I'm looking for, but I still enjoy fighting solo hosts. I know not all invaders do, but they can be interesting in their own right, I think. So Ninja is very firebomb happy. I'm not sure if they were hoping for kind of a Barker bomb bait situation where I'd roll into a katana parry, or if they were just trying to harass me. With some nice fire arrows. You don't see that very often, so that was cool. So I've broken out the offhand crow quills, which provides some nice mix-ups. And the host is not healing, so they were apparently treating this as kind of an honor duel, which I kind of, I kind of assess the situation and decide whether I want to play it that way. And here I was fine with that. They were engaging nicely. It was a kind of a fun fight, and you know, how often do you see fire arrows? That's cool. Much less like bow weapon arts. It's good stuff. There, I get the nice attack as he's coming in. Roll through the firebomb. And maybe he was trying to tag me, I'm not sure, with the parry, but that crow quill's just too fast. Thanks for watching, everybody.